Test, test. Can you speak?
Test, test.
Okay. Okay, so right now we are just testing out the audiovisual setup to interview Susan Walters, my mom. So, like you suggested, we could just start really high level. The goal is to get a snapshot of your life.
Okay.
And also information about our childhood growing up, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
starting when you were a kid, when we were kids.
Well, the best part was when you were kids.
Well, it's all interesting. So I think we'll learn a lot that we didn't know.
Okay.
So yeah, why don't you just start with the basics?
I don't have a picture anymore.
It'll
Okay.
do that. It'll just say battery.
Okay.
It blacks out.
My name right now is Susan Walters. I was born Susan Martin in July 14th of 1948. My parents were Eleanor Florence Knapp Walters, Martin, I'm sorry, and my father was George Edward Martin. They were born in Ravenna, Ohio. I was born in Ravenna, Ohio, and my three sisters were also born in Ravenna. My grandparents on both sides, my aunts and uncles, and almost all of them lived there too. So growing up, we grew up in a huge family of people surrounding us all the time. And for many years, we lived in a very small cottage in what was called Martinville. It was because my grandparents lived there, two of my aunts and uncles lived there, and we lived there, and we were all part of the Martin family. So we just called it Martinville.
Oh, okay.
It was a great childhood. I had cousins to play with. We had open space. We lived on a little lane, so we never had to worry about traffic.
So did you live in the same house?
We lived there for, I think I was 5, maybe 6 when we moved away from there and we bought a house. Mm-hmm. But for quite some time we lived there. Sherry never lived there because she hadn't been born yet.
Right.
But it was just a wonderful time. We all played together. It was kind of the neighborhood then that we hardly had any cars. We lived next to a big field. We never had to worry about anything. We never had to think about anything at all other than what silliness we were doing. And it was great fun for a long time. When I was closer to, and of course, at age 5, because of where we lived at the time, I was able to walk myself to kindergarten because it was that kind of a little town. And it wasn't, I don't think it was maybe 15 blocks that I had to walk.
15 blocks to go to kindergarten?
Well, it was at the church. I mean, it was at the Catholic school. I don't know. I had to go walk to where the church was. Or maybe it was, I guess maybe it was first grade, now that you say that.
Even so. 15 blocks, that's how many miles is that?
It's really surprising. Well, I was little. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was fine. I wouldn't allow my kids to do it at this point, but my mom thought it was fine, so that's what happened. Huh. But I would walk to school every day, and my Aunt Jean, who lived close by, several times stopped to pick me up and give me a ride, which was kind of nice of her.
It's really nice.
And then at one point, I guess my mom finally decided that it really wasn't a good idea for me to walk, or walk alone. But then we found people to walk with me, so we walked in a group to school. And it was a very small kind of school. As I said, it was a Catholic school, so we had to, and it was right next to the church, so we had to go to church every Wednesday, and catechism was like the most important thing we learned, I think. It was the one most taught. But despite that, I managed to get an education of sorts, and penmanship. We had to have perfect penmanship. So those were the two top things I learned at school and in the elementary years. My cousins, Aunt Ruth is my father's sister. She had 4 kids: Gary, Beth, Carl, and Pamela, in that order. And Beth and I were about the same age, so Gary was considerably older, and the other two are obviously closer to the ages of my younger sisters. But we just played together. I mean, just silly stuff. When we all got bicycles, there was a big field next to us, so we could all ride in the field without any concern about traffic. And even on our roads, on our little street, there was absolutely no traffic to speak of. But there was, interestingly enough, a coal mine across the street from the bottom of our street. And my parents and all the adults were just, don't ever go to the coal mine, don't ever go near the place, don't ever go. And you never saw a human being there. It was just this lump of empty.
Was it abandoned?
It seemed to be. I mean, I don't remember ever.
You never made your way there?
I'm not saying that I didn't.
It's tempting.
And I mean, yeah, we kind of looked around, but we certainly didn't, go spending a lot of time there.
Right.
And up the street from us, to the left, was the local neighborhood bar. And not that we ever went there, but it was like, we just knew it was there. And we thought, wow, that's really weird. We live so close to a bar.
So how big is this town?
The town itself, I think at the time, probably had about 6,000 people.
Oh, okay.
Within the past 10 years, I think it finally hit 10,000. And it may not have grown much more than that. I really don't know. I haven't been there in a long time. But it was kind of an idyllic in its way, because there were several kids in our neighborhood that we all knew we could all play with. There were a few that we just knew, nope, we're not playing with those kids, because we had a couple of rough and tumble guys, and we just didn't bother with them. But it was really lovely in so many, many ways. And with our grandparents and aunts and uncles close by, there was always somebody. If you needed something, always somebody if you wanted to talk to someone. And in particular, my Aunt Jean, who had grown up in Massachusetts, was a very wise woman, very common sense, and she was the person we would all talk to, all of us kids, if we had an issue of some sort or other. And
so how old, in comparison to you, how much older?
Aunt Jean?
Yeah.
Oh, she was an adult. She was probably, I would guess in her mid to late 20s when I met her. My uncle, Dan, my father's brother, was in Massachusetts for some reason, and I might have been the service, I can't remember. And he came home with a Massachusetts girl that he was married to. And my grandparents were a little put off, but because of the way my grandparents' house was set up, they had an apartment. And so Dan and Jean lived in Grandma and Grandpa's apartment for some time. It was a division. I mean,
so what were they put off about? That she was a Massachusetts
I think
girl?
Because she had an accent, because they hadn't met her before, because she was a little exotic.
So they weren't married?
By that time, I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they had to have been, because we didn't have a wedding that I can remember. But she was a lovely woman, very charming, very open, very. She was the kind of person you could talk to, and she would give you an answer, and she didn't make you feel like you were a dummy because you were asking a question, which was kind of a nice thing, because feeling like a dummy was sometimes one of the great hobbies in my parents' household. They were lovely people. They truly were intelligent, wonderful people. They did wonderful things within the community. My dad fell into drinking for some time and then joined AA.